"She's gone, Vanessa. Finally free," Dylan Carter whispered into his phone, voice laced with glee. "Meet me tonight, Azure Hotel, penthouse suite." On Miami's sunlit beach, the funeral of Shanice Williams, a 30-year-old black billionaire and Nexus AI founder, drew hundreds. White lilies blanketed the sand, mirroring the grief of employees, investors, and community members mourning her presumed death in a plane crash. Dylan, 34, played the grieving husband, his eyes glinting with crocodile tears in his black suit. As mourners dispersed, he slipped into his Porsche, a sly grin betraying his heart. Vanessa squealed, dreaming of mansions and private jets. Unaware a drone hovered, capturing every word. From a Key Biscayne safe house, Shanice, alive and seething, clutched her tablet, eyes blazing with fury, poised to unravel Dylan's scheme. What treachery lurks beneath his lies? The Miami sun blazed high, casting golden rays across the beach where mourners gathered, their black attire stark against the turquoise waves. The funeral of Shanice Williams, the 30-year-old black billionaire who built NexusEd, a $85 million education empire, was a spectacle of sorrow. Seashells gleamed amid the crowd, scattered as tributes to a woman believed lost in a plane crash. Dylan Carter, her 34-year-old husband, stood at the podium, his face a mask of grief. "Shanice was my everything," he said, voice cracking, hands trembling just enough to sell the lie. Women dabbed their eyes, men bowed their heads, and investors whispered of her legacy. Yet as the crowd's sobs mingled with the ocean's rhythm, Dylan's heart raced, not with loss but with triumph. He'd played his part flawlessly. The tailored black suit, the quivering lip, the pause before thanking the crowd, all rehearsed to perfection. Shanice's empire, her waterfront penthouse, her private island retreat, it was all his now, or so he thought. As the last mourners drifted away, leaving behind a trail of condolences, Dylan's demeanor shifted. His shoulders relaxed, and a glint of satisfaction flickered in his blue eyes. He slid into his Maserati, the engine purring as he dialed Cassandra Reed, his mistress of 2 years. "It's done," he said, voice low and smug. "Azure Hotel, presidential suite tonight. Wear that sapphire necklace I got you." Cassandra's laugh was sharp, dripping with greed. "Finally, Dylan, we're set. When do I move into her penthouse?" In a coconut grove loft, miles from the beach, Shanice Williams sat in shadow, her pulse steady but her eyes fierce. She wasn't dead. The plane crash was a meticulously staged ruse, crafted with her lawyer, Maya Torres, to expose Dylan's treachery. A tiny earpiece relayed his call, captured by a hidden mic she'd planted in his car weeks ago. Every word, his gloating, Cassandra's glee, stoked the fire in her chest. Shanice had known of their affair for months, uncovered when her accountant flagged irregular withdrawals. $1.8 million siphoned to fund Cassandra's yacht parties, designer gowns, and a Brickell condo. But it wasn't just the money. Dylan planned to sell NexusEd's core assets, its proprietary teaching methods, to a Japanese conglomerate for $40 million, erasing Shanice's vision of empowering underserved communities. She leaned back in her chair, the loft's minimalist decor a stark contrast to the chaos in her mind. The funeral had been her opening move, a trap to let Dylan think he'd won. She'd watched him from a distance, disguised in a black shawl, blending with the mourners. His performance was Oscar-worthy, but she saw the truth in his fleeting smirks, the way his fingers twitched with impatience. "You think you've outsmarted me," she whispered, her voice a low growl, "but you're about to lose everything." Shanice tapped a screen, pulling up files Lena Carter, her data analyst and former FBI consultant, had compiled: bank records, encrypted texts, and call logs proving Dylan's betrayal. Lena, with her sharp mind and sharper instincts, had been Shanice's secret weapon, ensuring every step of the plan was airtight. Dylan, oblivious, drove toward downtown Miami, the ocean breeze ruffling his hair. "Cassandra, we'll be in Monaco by next month," he said, chuckling. "Her company's mine to sell. Those do-gooder dreams of hers, they're history." Cassandra purred. "I'm already picking out my yacht. Make it quick, baby." Their laughter grated against Shanice's resolve, but she didn't flinch. She'd built NexusEd from nothing, clawing her way through a world that doubted a black woman's place in business. Every school her company reached, every child it empowered, was a testament to her fight. Dylan's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was an attack on that legacy. Shanice stood pacing the loft. She'd met Dylan in college, charmed by his easy smile and promises of partnership. But the cracks had appeared early. His disinterest in her work, his obsession with her wealth, his late nights at the office. Months ago, a misplaced phone had revealed his text to Cassandra, dripping with disdain for Shanice's mission. "She's too focused on saving kids to see what's coming," he'd written. The words had seared her, but they also woke her. She'd hired Lena, who uncovered Dylan's plan to manipulate NexusEd's shareholders and sell its assets. The plane crash was Shanice's gambit, approved by Maya to avoid legal fallout, designed to let Dylan expose himself. Now, as Dylan planned his evening with Cassandra, Shanice was a step ahead. Lena had tapped into his financial accounts, tracking every transfer to Cassandra's name. The $1.8 million was just the start. Dylan had already contacted the Japanese buyers, promising a deal within weeks. Shanice's plan was bolder. She'd let him dig his own grave, then strike when his guard was down. "He thinks I'm gone," she said to Lena, who joined her in the loft. "But I'm just getting started." Lena nodded, her eyes gleaming. "We've got enough to bury him. What's next?" Shanice's lips curved into a steely smile. "A shareholder meeting. He'll try to take control there. That's where we'll end him." The Miami sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the beach where the funeral had unfolded. Dylan's Maserati sped toward the Sapphire Lux Hotel, his mind on champagne and conquest. He didn't notice the faint hum of the mic in his car, relaying his every word to the woman he thought he'd outwitted. Shanice, in her loft, closed the screen, her resolve unyielding. She'd built an empire against all odds, and no one, not Dylan, not Cassandra, would steal it. The stage was set, the trap primed. All she needed was for Dylan to take one more step into her web. What would he do when the woman he betrayed returned to claim her throne? The Miami breeze carried a faint salt tang through the open window of Shanice Williams' Coconut Grove loft, but it did nothing to soothe the ache in her chest. She stood motionless, staring at a framed photo on the desk, her and Dylan Carter, arms entwined, smiling at their wedding 6 years ago. The memory felt like a blade, twisting deeper with each heartbeat. How had she missed the truth? The man she'd loved, who'd vowed to stand by her, had been siphoning her fortune, $1.8 million, to lavish his mistress, Cassandra Reed, with luxuries. Worse, he planned to gut NexusEd, her education empire, and sell its heart to the highest bidder. Shanice's fingers tightened around the frame, her knuckles paling. The pain wasn't just betrayal, it was the theft of her dreams, built through years of defiance against a world that doubted a black woman's brilliance. Months ago, the first crack appeared. Shanice had been in her penthouse office, reviewing contracts for NexusEd's expansion into underserved schools. Dylan, always charming, had kissed her forehead before leaving for a business dinner, but his phone, left on the kitchen counter, buzzed with a notification. Curiosity tugged at her, and she glanced at the screen. A message from CR with a heart emoji. "Can't wait to wear the bracelet tonight, babe. You spoil me." Shanice's stomach lurched. She'd unlocked the phone. His password was her birthday, a cruel irony, and found a cascade of texts. Photos of Cassandra, all sharp cheekbones in designer dresses, draped on Dylan's arm at yacht clubs. Receipts for jewelry, spa weekends, a Brickell condo, all paid with Shanice's money. Each word was a dagger. "She's too busy with her charity nonsense to notice," Dylan had written. "We'll be set soon." Shanice's breath hitched now, recalling the nausea that had sent her reeling to the bathroom that night. She'd trusted Dylan, poured her heart into their marriage, believing his support was genuine. He'd cheered her at galas, toasted her success, but it was all a performance. The text revealed his true face, a man who saw her as a vault, not a partner. Her tears had dried quickly, replaced by a fire that burned hotter with each discovery. She wasn't just a scorned wife. She was a warrior whose empire, built to lift kids out of poverty, was under siege. "He thinks I'm blind," she whispered, setting the photo face down. But I see everything now. Across town, Dylan lounged in the Sapphire Lux Hotel's rooftop bar, a glass of bourbon in hand. The Miami skyline sparkled below, a playground for his ambitions. He felt untouchable, the funeral's success still buzzing in his veins. Shanice's mourners had eaten up his grief act, and soon her company would be his to dismantle. Cassandra joined him, her heels clicking on the marble floor, sapphire necklace glinting at her throat. "You were perfect today," she purred, sliding into the booth. Her ambition radiated, eyes gleaming with visions of penthouses and private islands. "When do we cash in?" Dylan smirked, swirling his drink. "Patience, love. The shareholders are eating out of my hand. A few forged papers and NexusEd's ours to sell." His heart raced, not with guilt, but with the thrill of conquest. Shanice's death, staged as a fiery accident, was his golden ticket. Cassandra leaned closer, her perfume sharp and expensive. "I've been patient, Dylan. 2 years of sneaking around, wearing her money on my wrist." She flicked the bracelet, a $15,000 trinket he'd bought with Shanice's funds. "I want the world to know I'm the new Mrs. Carter." Dylan's smile tightened. Cassandra's hunger matched his own, but her impatience grated. He needed her, though. Her charm had kept his secrets safe, her social media posts a distraction from his moves. "Soon," he said, voice smooth, "we'll be sipping champagne in Monaco, and her do-gooder legacy will be dust." Their laughter mingled, oblivious to the mic hidden in his watch, relaying every word to Shanice's ally. In her loft, Shanice sat with Lena Carter. No relation to Dylan, but a fierce former FBI data analyst with a knack for uncovering lies. Lena's laptop glowed, displaying bank records and texts Shanice had pulled from Dylan's phone. "He's been bleeding you dry," Lena said, her voice steady but laced with disgust. $1.8 million to Cassandra, plus talks with a Japanese firm to sell your teaching methods for $40 million. Shanice's jaw clenched, but her eyes burned with purpose. The betrayal cut deep, but it was Dylan's disdain for her mission, educating kids who looked like her, who'd grown up in neighborhoods like hers, that fueled her rage. She'd faced skeptics who said a black woman couldn't build an empire. NexusEd was her defiance, her proof. Dylan's greed was a personal insult, but his plan to erase it was war. "You're sure about this?" Lena asked, her gaze searching. "Faking your death was bold, but what's next is bigger." Shanice stood, her shadow sharp against the loft's white walls. "I've never been surer. He thinks he's won, but I'm rewriting the game." Her voice was steel, forged in the crucible of betrayal. She'd spent months planning, working with her lawyer, Maya, to ensure her scheme was legally sound. The stage fire had convinced the world, and Dylan's arrogance was her weapon. Lena nodded, pulling up a new file. "He's meeting shareholders tomorrow, pushing for control. That's your window." Shanice's lips curved, not in joy but in resolve. "Let him talk. Every word tightens the noose." Dylan at the bar raised his glass to Cassandra. "To us," he said, eyes glinting with greed. He saw a future of yachts and villas, free from Shanice's shadow. But Shanice in her loft saw a different future, one where Dylan's lies crumbled and her empire stood taller. Her heart, once broken, now beats with purpose. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every dream she'd built, every child she'd vowed to uplift. As the Miami sun sank, casting fiery hues across the city, Shanice's resolve blazed brighter. Dylan and Cassandra thought they'd buried her. They were wrong. She was alive, and her reckoning was coming. The Coconut Grove loft hummed with quiet intensity, its bare walls echoing Shanice Williams' steady breaths. She stood by the window, the Miami skyline shimmering under the midday sun, but her heart was a furnace of resolve. The pain of Dylan's betrayal, his callous texts, his theft of $1.8 million to fund Cassandra's lavish life, had hardened into something sharper, a vow to reclaim her empire. NexusEd, her beacon for underserved children, wasn't just a business. It was her defiance against a world that questioned her worth as a black woman. Dylan's plan to sell it for $40 million to a Japanese conglomerate was a wound deeper than his infidelity. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms. "You won't take my dream," she whispered, her voice a low, fierce promise. She'd stage a fire to make the world believe she was gone, letting Dylan's greed unravel him. Across the city in a sleek Ocean Drive cafe, Dylan sipped an espresso, his confidence a polished veneer. The funeral had been a triumph, his grief convincing even the sharpest skeptics. He felt the weight of NexusEd's future in his hands, a prize he'd soon cash in. Cassandra slid into the seat opposite, her eyes gleaming with ambition, the sapphire necklace he'd bought her catching the light. "You're a genius, Dylan," she said, voice sultry. "Everyone bought your tears. Now what?" His smirk was all teeth. "We wait. The shareholders are shaken. Perfect time to push for control." His heart thrummed with anticipation, not a flicker of guilt for Shanice. She'd been a means to an end, her passion for education a tiresome hurdle. Cassandra's hunger matched his, her dreams of yachts and Parisian runways fueling his resolve. "You'll be dripping in diamonds soon," he promised, oblivious to the mic sewn into his jacket, capturing every word. Shanice, in her loft, met with Lena Carter, her data analyst ally, whose cool precision cut through the chaos of betrayal. Lena's presence was a lifeline, her calm grounding Shanice's fury. "We're ready," Lena said, spreading blueprints of Shanice's downtown office across the table. "The fire will look real. Smoke machines, controlled pyrotechnics, no trace of you. The media will eat it up." Shanice's chest tightened, not with fear but with the weight of her choice. Faking her death was a gamble, one she'd cleared with her lawyer, Maya Torres, to avoid legal blowback. Maya had secured a judge's discreet approval, ensuring Shanice's plan hinged on airtight evidence against Dylan. "It's not just about me," Shanice said, her voice thick with conviction. "It's for every kid I promised a future, every door I forced open as a black woman in this city." Her thoughts drifted to the battles she'd fought to build NexusEd, the boardrooms where her ideas were dismissed, the investors who raised eyebrows at her ambition, the whispers that a black woman couldn't lead. Each triumph had been a brick in her empire, each child's smile a validation. Dylan's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a theft of that legacy. She touched the desk, where a photo of a classroom she'd funded lay, kids beaming with hope. The memory steadied her, turning her anger into a blade. "He thinks I'm ashes," she said to Lena, eyes fierce. "But I'm the spark." Lena's nod was firm. "We've got his calls, his bank transfers. He's already talking to the Japanese buyers. One wrong move, and he's done." Dylan at the cafe leaned back, basking in his perceived victory. "Cassandra, you're my queen," he said, his voice dripping with charm. "Once I'm running NexusEd, we'll sell it and never look back." Cassandra's laugh was sharp, her greed a mirror to his. "I'm tired of hiding, Dylan. I want her penthouse, her spotlight." Her fingers traced the necklace, a symbol of their shared ambition. She didn't love Dylan. She loved what he could give her. The thought of Shanice's wealth, her status, made her pulse race. "Make it quick," she urged, not noticing Dylan's jacket mic, its faint static feeding every word to Shanice's team. Their arrogance was a gift, each boast tightening the noose Shanice had crafted. In the loft, Shanice's heart pounded, not with pain now, but with purpose. She'd loved Dylan once, believed his promises, but that love had blinded her to his greed. Now her eyes were open, her soul alight with the fire of retribution. She and Lena finalized the plan. The fire would erupt tonight, staged with theatrical precision to convince the world of her death. News outlets would mourn, shareholders would panic, and Dylan would pounce. "He'll think he's won," Shanice said, her voice a low growl. "But every step he takes is on my chessboard." Lena's eyes gleamed. "We've got the tech to make it flawless. Smoke, flames, no body. He won't suspect a thing." Dylan, finishing his espresso, felt invincible. The world saw him as a grieving widower, poised to inherit Shanice's empire. He didn't see the trap, didn't feel the weight of Shanice's gaze through the mic's silent feed. Cassandra, sipping her martini, dreamed of headlines proclaiming her as Miami's new elite. Their laughter rang out, a stark contrast to the storm brewing. Shanice, in her loft, stood tall, her resolve a fortress. She wasn't just fighting for her company, she was fighting for the girl who dreamed big, The woman who'd built an empire, the legacy no one could steal. As the Miami sun climbed higher, her plan ignited, ready to burn Dylan's world to the ground. What would happen when the flames cleared and the truth stood unmasked? The Miami skyline gleamed through the glass walls of NexusEd's boardroom, but the air inside crackled with tension. Shanice Williams, presumed dead by the world, stood in the shadows of an adjacent office, her heart pounding with a fierce, electric resolve. The stage fire had done its work. News outlets mourned her, shareholders reeled, and Dylan Carter, her treacherous husband, saw his moment to seize her empire. She'd watched him for weeks, his every word captured by the mic in his jacket, his greed laid bare. Now in this gleaming tower, he was pitching to NexusEd's shareholders, his lies a noose tightening around his own neck. Shanice's fingers grazed the edge of her tablet, its screen glowing with evidence. Bank records, texts, and call logs proving Dylan's theft of $1.8 million and his plan to sell her company's teaching methods for $40 million. Her chest burned, not with pain anymore, but with the fire of a woman ready to reclaim her throne. Dylan stood at the head of the boardroom table, his tailored suit pristine, his smile a calculated blend of charm and sorrow. "Shanice trusted me to carry her vision," he said, voice smooth as velvet, holding up forged documents that named him her successor. The shareholders, 10 men and women in crisp suits, nodded, their faces heavy with grief for the woman they believed lost. Dylan's heart raced, not with shame, but with triumph. He could taste the victory, NexusEd's assets, its prestige, all his to liquidate. "Her legacy is safe with me," he lied, his eyes glinting with the promise of yachts and villas. He didn't see Shanice, didn't feel the weight of her gaze. To him, she was ashes, her dreams a commodity to trade. His arrogance was a drug, and he was high on it. Cassandra Reed in her Brickell condo scrolled through her phone, her pulse quickening with anticipation. She'd posted another video that morning, flaunting a diamond-encrusted clutch bought with Shanice's money, her caption bold, "New chapter, new queen." The likes poured in, feeding her hunger for fame, but a growing wave of comments stung. "Where'd you get that cash? Who's paying for this?" Her smile faltered, a flicker of unease piercing her confidence. She texted Dylan, her fingers trembling. "You said this was foolproof. Hurry up." Cassandra didn't love him. She loved the life he promised, the spotlight she craved. Shanice's empire was her ticket to stardom, and she'd claw her way to it, no matter the cost. But doubt gnawed at her, a whisper that something was wrong. Shanice, hidden in the office, felt her resolve solidify into steel. The betrayal had once broken her, but now it was fuel. She'd built NexusEd to give kids a chance. Kids like the ones she'd grown up with in overlooked neighborhoods, where dreams were often snuffed out. Dylan's plan to sell it was a spit in the face of every struggle she'd overcome, every door she'd forced open as a black woman in a world that tried to box her in. Her fingers hovered over the tablet, ready to override the boardroom's presentation system. Lena Carter, her data analyst ally, stood beside her, eyes sharp. "He's selling them hard," Lena whispered, nodding at the screen where Dylan's forged papers flashed. "Now's your moment." Shanice's lips curved, not in joy, but in power. He's about to meet the real Shanice. Dylan clicked to his next slide, expecting to display NexusEd's financials. Instead, the screen flickered, and his own voice boomed through the room. "She's gone, Cassandra. We're set." The shareholders gasped as the recording played. Dylan and Cassandra at the Sapphire Lux Hotel, laughing about Shanice's death, plotting to sell her company. Bank transfers of $1.8 million flashed, followed by texts. "Her charity nonsense is history. Monaco's waiting." Dylan's face drained of color, his hands fumbling for the remote. "This is a mistake," he stammered, but the system was locked. The shareholders' murmurs turned to outrage, their eyes darting to him like daggers. Shanice stepped into the boardroom, slay and radiant in a white crop top, cream blazer, and mermaid skirt, her brown skin glowing, long, straight hair cascading. "I'm not dead," she said, her voice cutting like a blade. "But your lies are, Dylan." The room froze, shareholders gaping as she held up her tablet. "This man stole $1.8 million from me forged documents to steal my company, and planned to sell it for 40 million. There, you heard him. Dylan lunged forward, voice cracking. You're insane, Shanice. This is a setup. She met his gaze, unflinching. A setup? Like the condo you bought, Cassandra? Or the deal with the Japanese buyers? It's over, Dylan. The shareholders erupted, some shouting, others dialing their lawyers. Dylan's bravado crumbled, his eyes wild with panic as security appeared at the door. Cassandra, in her condo, refreshed her phone, her heart sinking. Her latest post was flooded with hate. Thief! Homewrecker! She threw the phone down, her dreams of fame curdling into fear. She'd banked on Dylan's plan, but now the ground was shifting. He swore it was safe, she muttered, her voice trembling. She didn't know Shanice was alive, didn't know her world was about to collapse. Shanice, in the boardroom, felt a surge of triumph, but it was tempered by the weight of what she'd endured. This wasn't just about Dylan. It was about protecting the kids her company served, the legacy she'd fought for. As security closed in on Dylan, she stood tall, her heart a fortress. The mask had fallen, but the battle wasn't over. What would Dylan do when the walls closed in? The Miami dusk painted the city in hues of amber and violet, but in Shanice Williams' Coconut Grove loft, a storm of resolve churned within her. The boardroom confrontation had left Dylan Carter exposed, his lies broadcast to NexusEd's shareholders, their outrage still ringing in her ears. She stood by the window, her heart a fortress of determination, the weight of her empire, built to uplift children from forgotten corners, anchoring her. Dylan's theft of $1.8 million and his plot to sell her company for $40 million had ignited a fire in her soul, not of vengeance but of justice. She'd bared his deceit, but he wasn't done yet. Her fingers grazed the tablet, its screen alive with Lena Carter's latest intercepts, Dylan's frantic calls, his plans to flee. You thought you could bury me, Shanice whispered, her voice low and fierce. But I'm the one pulling the strings now. Across town in a dimly lit South Beach hotel room, Dylan paced like a caged animal, his pulse hammering with panic. The shareholder meeting had been a disaster. Shanice's voice, her presence, had shattered his carefully crafted facade. His tailored suit, once a symbol of control, now felt like a straitjacket. She's alive, he muttered, sweat beading on his brow. How the hell is she alive? He dialed Cassandra Reed, his mistress, his voice raw with desperation. Cassandra, pack your bags. We're leaving Miami tonight. Her response was sharp, edged with fear. Leaving? Dylan, you said this was foolproof. What happened? He gripped the phone, knuckles white. She set me up, but we've still got the money. Bahamas now. His heart raced, not with the thrill of greed anymore, but with the terror of a man watching his empire of lies collapse. Cassandra, in her brickle condo, stood frozen, her hands trembling as she shoved designer dresses into a suitcase. The sapphire necklace Dylan had bought her, paid for with Shanice's millions, felt heavy around her neck, a chain rather than a prize. Her phone buzzed with notifications, her latest social media post drowned in vitriol. Gold digger! Thief! The world was turning against her, the fame she'd chased morphing into infamy. This wasn't supposed to happen, she hissed, her voice cracking. She dreamed of being Miami's next queen, her face on billboards, her name in lights. Dylan had promised her that, promised her Shanice's life. But now doubt clawed at her, a cold realization that she'd bet on the wrong man. You better fix this, Dylan, she snapped into the phone, her ambition curdling into dread. Shanice, in her loft, sat with Lena, whose calm precision was a counterpoint to the fury pulsing through her veins. Lena's laptop displayed new evidence, a $200,000 transfer from Dylan to an offshore account in Cassandra's name, flagged by their banking contact. He's trying to run, Lena said, her voice steady but laced with disdain. Booked a private yacht to the Bahamas, leaving at midnight. Shanice's eyes narrowed, a steely glint reflecting her unshakable will. She'd built NexusEd to give kids a future, defying every skeptic who said a black woman couldn't lead. Dylan's betrayal wasn't just a theft of money. It was an assault on that legacy, on the children she'd vowed to protect. Let him try, she said, her voice a low growl. Every move he makes digs his grave deeper. Dylan in the hotel stuffed cash into a duffel bag, his hands shaking. The confidence that had fueled him at the funeral was gone, replaced by a gnawing fear. Shanice's return had been a gut punch. Her words, "I'm not dead," echoing in his mind like a curse. He'd underestimated her, thought her passion for education made her weak, exploitable. Now he saw her strength, and it terrified him. "We'll start over," he told Cassandra over the phone, his voice hollow. "The money's safe. They can't touch us in the Bahamas." But doubt crept in, a whisper that Shanice wasn't done. He pushed it aside, clinging to the hope that escape would save him. His heart pounded, not with ambition now, but with the primal urge to survive. Cassandra, zipping her suitcase, felt her world unraveling. The condo, once a symbol of her ascent, now felt like a trap. She glanced at her phone, the hateful comments multiplying. "You stole from a hero." Shanice deserved better. Her chest tightened, her dreams of stardom slipping through her fingers like sand. She'd tied her future to Dylan, believing his promises of wealth and power. Now those promises felt like shackles. "You swore we'd be untouchable," she said, her voice trembling with accusation. "If you screw this up, Dylan, I'm not going down with you." Her fear was raw, a stark contrast to the confidence she'd flaunted days ago. She didn't know Shanice was listening, didn't know the mic in Dylan's watch was still active, feeding every word to her enemy. Shanice leaned forward, her resolve a blazing shield. Lena played the latest intercept, Dylan's yacht booking, his desperate transfer to Cassandra. "They're panicking," Lena said, a rare smile flickering. "Perfect." Shanice nodded, her heart steady despite the storm of emotions. She'd loved Dylan once, believed in their shared future, but that love had blinded her to his greed. Now her eyes were open, her purpose clear. She wasn't just saving Nexus, as she was saving the dreams of countless children, the legacy she'd fought for against a world that tried to diminish her. "Send the evidence to Maya," she told Lena, her voice unwavering. "The police need to know where he's headed." Her fingers brushed the tablet, a symbol of her control. Dylan thought he could run, but she'd built a cage he couldn't escape. In the hotel, Dylan slung the duffel bag over his shoulder, his breath ragged. "We'll be gone before they know," he told himself, but his voice lacked conviction. Cassandra's last words echoed, "I'm not going down with you." He ignored the chill they sent down his spine, focusing on the yacht, the open sea, and freedom. But Shanice, in her loft, saw every move, her heart a drumbeat of justice. She wasn't the grieving widow Dylan had planned for. She was a force unstoppable, ready to bring him to his knees. As the Miami dusk deepened, the trap tightened, and the hunter became the hunted. What would happen when Dylan realized there was no escape? The Miami courthouse loomed like a sentinel, its marble columns gleaming under the morning sun. But inside, a storm of reckoning brewed. Shanice Williams stood at the plaintiff's table, her heart a blazing crucible of righteous fury. The boardroom had been her first strike, exposing Dylan Carter's lies to NexusEd's shareholders. But this courtroom was her battleground. She'd built her education empire to lift children from the margins, a legacy forged against a world that doubted a black woman's power. Dylan's theft of $1.8 million and his scheme to sell her company for $40 million were not just betrayals, they were assaults on that dream. Her pulse thrummed with purpose, her eyes locked on the judge's bench. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here for justice, for every kid her work had promised a future. "He thought he could erase me," she whispered to herself, her voice a low vow. "Today, he learns I'm unbreakable." Dylan sat at the defendant's table, his once polished suit now creased, his face pale with unraveling panic. The courtroom's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows, mirroring the dread pooling in his gut. The shareholder meeting had been a catastrophe. Shanice's voice, her presence, had shattered his world. He'd tried to run, booking a yacht to the Bahamas, but the police had been waiting, tipped off by Shanice's evidence. His hands trembled, clutching the table's edge as he faced the judge. "I'm innocent," he muttered, his voice hollow, a lie even he didn't believe. His heart raced not with the arrogance that had fueled him at the funeral, but with the terror of a man cornered. Shanice was alive and her shadow loomed larger than ever. He'd underestimated her, seen her passion as weakness. Now that mistake was a noose around his neck. Across the city in a cramped Brickell motel, Cassandra Reed curled on a sagging bed, her eyes red from crying. The sapphire necklace, once a symbol of her triumph, lay discarded on the nightstand, a bitter reminder of her fall. Her phone buzzed with hate notifications. Her social media posts, once brimming with glamour, now buried under accusations. Thief! Traitor! She'd dreamed of being Miami's next star, her face splashed across tabloids. But Shanice's return had turned her into a pariah. "This is Dylan's fault," she sobbed, her voice raw with despair. She'd tied her future to his promises, to the $1.8 million he'd stolen for her condo, her gowns, her dreams. Now with police circling and a $70,000 debt looming, her ambition had crumbled into ash. She clutched her phone, texting Dylan, "You ruined me." But her words were a cry into the void. She was alone. Shanice, in the courtroom, stood tall as her lawyer. Maya Torres presented the evidence. Maya's voice was steady, slicing through the room. Dylan Carter stole $1.8 million from Shanice Williams, forged documents to seize NexusEd, and conspired to sell its assets for $40 million. The judge's eyes narrowed as recordings played. Dylan's voice gloating at the Sapphire Lux Hotel. Her charity nonsense is history. Bank statements flashed, showing transfers to Cassandra's accounts. The gallery, packed with reporters and NexusEd supporters, erupted in murmurs. Shanice's chest swelled with a fierce pride, not just for herself, but for the children her company served. She'd faced down skeptics who said a black woman couldn't lead, built an empire from nothing. Dylan's betrayal had shaken her, but it had also forged her into steel. "You tried to bury my work," she thought, staring at him, "but I'm still standing." Dylan's lawyer rose, his voice faltering. "My client acted under duress, believing he was honoring his wife's wishes." The lie was flimsy, and Dylan's eyes darted, searching for an escape that wasn't there. He met Shanice's gaze, and for a moment, his panic gave way to a flicker of regret. Not for her, but for himself. He'd seen her as a cash machine, her passion for education a nuisance. Now her strength was his undoing. "Shanice, please," he whispered, barely audible, but she didn't flinch. His heart sank, the weight of his choices crushing him. The courtroom felt like a cage, the judge's gavel a ticking clock. He'd gambled everything on her death, and he'd lost. Cassandra in the motel stared at her phone, the screen now dark. She'd sent Dylan one last text, begging him to fix this, but no reply came. Her dreams of stardom, of strutting through Miami's elite circles, were gone. She'd believed Dylan's promises, let his stolen money define her worth. Now with creditors calling and her name smeared, she felt hollow, her despair a heavy fog. She didn't know police were closing in, alerted by Shanice's team about her role in the theft. "I was supposed to be a queen," she whispered, tears falling. But her crown was a lie, and the world knew it. Her heart ached, not for love, but for the life she'd lost. Shanice, watching the judge review the evidence, felt a surge of clarity. This wasn't just about Dylan or Cassandra. It was about protecting NexusEd's mission, the schools it funded, the futures it shaped. Maya leaned close, whispering, "We've got him." Shanice nodded, her resolve unshakable. The judge's voice boomed. "Dylan Carter, you are hereby charged with embezzlement, forgery, and fraud. Bail denied." The gavel struck, and the gallery cheered. Dylan slumped, his face a mask of defeat, as officers cuffed him. Shanice's heart didn't soften. She'd loved him once, but that love was ashes now. She was fighting for something bigger, her legacy, her people, her truth. Cassandra, hearing sirens outside the motel, froze, her despair deepening. She didn't know Shanice had sent evidence of her complicity to the police, didn't know her world was about to collapse further. Shanice, stepping out of the courtroom, felt the sun on her face, a symbol of her victory. She wasn't done. Her empire needed rebuilding, her heart needed healing, but today justice had prevailed. As Dylan was led away, his eyes met hers one last time, pleading. She turned away, her soul alight with purpose. The fight wasn't over, but she was ready. What lay beyond the courthouse doors? The Miami night shimmered with stars, their light dancing on the waves below Shanice Williams' penthouse balcony, where she stood, her heart aglow with triumph and hope. The courtroom had been her battlefield, the shareholder meeting her ambush, but this moment was her victory. NexusEd, her education empire, soared past $100 million, its mission to uplift children from overlooked corners stronger than ever. Dylan Carter's betrayal, his theft of $1.8 million, his plot to sell her life's work for $40 million, had once threatened to shatter her. Now those wounds fueled her purpose. As a black woman who'd defied a world that doubted her, she'd built more than a company. She'd built a beacon. Her soul thrummed with pride, not just for herself, but for every child her work reached. "They tried to break me," she whispered, her voice a quiet anthem, "but I'm unbreakable." In a stark Miami jail cell, Dylan Carter sat slumped, his eyes dull with despair. The cold concrete walls mirrored the emptiness in his chest, where arrogance had once reigned. He'd dreamed of yachts and villas, of selling NexusEd to live a life of ease with Cassandra Reed. Now an 8-year sentence loomed, his name a stain in the city's gossip. Regret gnawed at him, not for Shanice's pain, but for the empire he'd lost. "I was so close," he muttered, his voice a broken rasp. He'd seen her as a pawn, her passion for education a flaw to exploit. Her strength, unyielding in the courtroom, radiant in the boardroom, had crushed him. His hands clutched the bars, trembling with the weight of his choices. He'd gambled on her death, but she'd outplayed him, leaving him with nothing but the echo of his own hubris. Across town in a dimly lit Brickell diner, Cassandra Reed cleared dishes, her shoulders heavy with resignation. The sapphire necklace was gone, sold to chip away at her $70,000 debt. Her phone, once a gateway to fame, now held only silence. No followers, no spotlight, just the bitter aftertaste of shame. The headlines had branded her a thief, her role in Dylan's scheme exposed in court. "I was supposed to shine," she whispered, her voice cracking as she scrubbed a table. She'd craved Miami's elite circles, believed Dylan's promises of grandeur. Now, working late shifts to survive, she saw the truth. Her ambition had been her undoing. Her heart ached, not for love, but for the self she'd lost chasing a lie. Resignation settled in, a quiet acceptance that she'd have to rebuild from nothing. Shanice, on her balcony, felt the city's pulse sync with her own. She'd launched the Empower Black Tech Fund, pouring $12 million into black women entrepreneurs, a tribute to her own battles against skepticism and bias. At a recent Miami summit, she'd met Jordan Hayes, whose sincerity had sparked something new in her heart. Their connection had deepened, rooted in shared dreams of education and community. Tonight, Jordan stood beside her, his presence a warm anchor. "You've changed lives," he said, his voice soft but earnest, handing her a woven bracelet from a student in a NexusEd-funded school. "This kid says you're her hero." Shanice's heart swelled, the gesture piercing the armor she'd worn since Dylan's betrayal. Jordan saw her, not her wealth, but her mission. Her eyes glistened, hope blooming where pain had once lived. In his cell, Dylan's thoughts churned, a letter to Shanice half-written in his mind. "I'm sorry," he'd scrawled, but the words felt hollow. He didn't regret hurting her. He regretted losing. Her face in the courtroom, fierce and unyielding, haunted him. He thought her passion made her weak, but it was her strength that had caged him. His despair was a weight, crushing the last of his pride. He'd traded love for greed, and now he had neither. The jail's silence mocked him, a reminder that his choices had built this prison. He closed his eyes, wishing for a chance that would never come. Cassandra, stacking plates, caught her reflection in the diner's window. Tired, stripped of glamour. She'd sent Shanice a message weeks ago, begging for mercy, but got only silence. "She owes me nothing," she admitted, her voice barely audible. The world had turned its back, her name a punchline in Miami's tabloids. Yet in her resignation, a spark flickered. Not defiance, but a quiet resolve to survive. She'd been a fool chasing Dylan's lies, but she'd find a way forward, even if it meant scraping by. Her heart, once hungry for fame, now craved redemption, however distant. Shanice, holding the bracelet, felt a rush of gratitude. Jordan's hand brushed hers, his warmth a contrast to Dylan's cold ambition. "You've built something incredible," he said, his eyes steady. "Not just a company, but a future." Shanice's smile was soft, her heart daring to trust again. She loved Dylan, believed his vows, but his betrayal had taught her to see truth. Jordan's sincerity, his questions about her work, not her wealth, was a new kind of promise. "I'm not just rebuilding," she said, her voice vibrant. "I'm creating." The Empower Black Tech Fund had already funded 60 women, each a testament to her fight. Her heart, once scarred, now beat with possibility. On the balcony, the Miami night wrapped around them, its stars a canvas of hope. Shanice's empire was secure, her legacy growing, but it was this moment, Jordan's hand in hers, the bracelet's weight, that felt like victory. She'd faced a world that tried to dim her, fought a man who tried to steal her light. Now she stood taller, her soul a flame no one could extinguish. Dylan and Cassandra were shadows, their fates sealed by their greed. Shanice was the fire, burning bright, ready to shape a world where dreams like hers could thrive. What new horizons awaited her unshackled heart? Shanice Williams rose from betrayal's ashes, her heart a beacon of triumph, proving no one could dim her light. Dylan and Cassandra's greed led to their ruin, but Shanice's legacy burns brighter, a testament to resilience. What did her journey stir in you? Did her fire ignite your own? Share your thoughts. How did Shanice's strength, Dylan's fall, or Jordan's sincerity resonate? Your voice matters in this tale of justice and rebirth. Thank you for walking this Miami night with us, feeling every pulse of pain and victory. Stay tuned for more stories where hearts clash and truths unfold. Until we meet again, keep chasing your unbreakable dreams.